The Asus ROG Ally is one of the newest handheld gaming devices, and this thing packs a serious punch. Going head to head with the Steam Deck, this ROG Ally allows you to play true native PC games anywhere you go. Now, is this the new king of handheld gamings, or should you consider other options? Hi guys, my name is Manny Rataul, and today we'll be doing the comprehensive review of the Asus ROG Ally, and this video may be a bit long, so there are timestamps that will be posted along the side here and along the bottom, so you can skip to parts that are relevant to what you're looking for in this review. But I want to make sure that I cover all bases to make sure that this is the device that you're looking for, especially if you are considering buying a new handheld gaming device. Okay, we're going to jump straight into the contents of the box when you purchase this thing. So you get the actual ROG Ally device, you get a 65 watt fast charger, and you get a dock, but that's essentially it. If you haven't watched the unboxing video, I actually did one, you can find it right here, but the contents of it are pretty minimal. But the good thing is the packaging is straight to the point and is easy to take out of the box and get going. So the design of the Ally is actually pretty cool. So if you guys have seen this, it might look familiar to you. It looks like the Steam Deck, but without the touchpad on one of the sides here. Now it comes with the standard analog stick layout. So if you're coming from the PS5 and Xbox side of things, you're obviously very familiar with how the analog sticks work. You also have the standard A, B, X, Y buttons here, and you do have a D-pad, which is very convenient. Now on the top, you do have your L1, R1, L2, and R2 triggers. But the coolest thing is on the rear, you get two more rear bumper triggers. And this is very convenient when you are playing games that require button input from the back. So for example, when I'm playing F1, I use these buttons and I map them to use as gear shifters. So it also gives me like almost a real world experience of playing the game. Now you also do get a standard 7-inch screen. There are two versions of the Ally, but they're both pretty much identical. On the rear, you have a headphone jack, which is very convenient. This does support Bluetooth, so you don't have to have a wired headset. You have a USB-C connector. You also have a micro SD expandable slot. So the Ally comes with 512 gigabytes of internal storage, which is what the Steam Deck offers at its highest model. But this also allows you to expand storage. If you're running low, you can just pop a micro SD in there and you're good to go, which is a huge feature that other handheld gaming devices don't really offer you guys. Now, another super cool feature that you get with the Asus ROG Ally is the analog sticks with the RGB halos here. So you can actually map this out and you can change the colors however you feel, but this comes around both of the analog sticks. Another cool thing is, and if you flip it on the rear, you can see that you have this really cool magnetic or stainless steel strip. Now it looks like this is RGB lighting, but it's actually just a reflection. So it does give this a little extra character. And on the back, you can see that it has the, I believe this is the Asus logo or emblem, but these are actually vents. So they did a really good job of making sure the design looks cool, but also practical. Also, I just want to take a quick minute to mention the sponsor of this video. And that's you guys. Yes, you guys have taken my channel from 0 subscribers to almost 3,000 at the time of this video. And the feedback and the love that you give in this channel have been phenomenal and it allows me to make videos like this. So if you like content related to tech and video games and you want to see more of this in the future, hit that subscribe button and hit the notification bell to keep in touch with all the videos. Now I want to take a little bit of time to talk about the screen, and the screen is a pretty major feature and advantage that the Ally has that its competitor like the Steam Deck does not have. So this is the 7-inch screen. It comes with Gorilla Glass protection, so it is a very durable screen, but I still recommend that you don't keep sharp objects around it. But the best thing about it, this is full 1080p. The Steam Deck is only 720p, and this has a 120 hertz refresh rate. So that means that you get high refresh rates and allow you to play up at higher frame rates when you're playing games that require a lot of movement, like I would say like sports games or especially F1 where there's lots of movement and you want to be able to see everything without the motion blur. The great thing about the refresh rate is that it is variable. So you can go in on the settings and you can actually drop it down to 60 hertz if you want it fixed and want to save some battery life. But in certain games, you can actually vary the refresh rate. So it will go all the way up to 120 hertz and down to 10 if you want to save battery life. My preference is always to keep it as high as possible, because I don't like motion blur in a lot of sports games. But other than that, this is a pretty major advantage over the Steam Deck. And on top of that, this is a touch screen. So it's touch enabled that allows you to use both the screen to navigate as well as the D-pad and analog sticks. Now the screen on the Ally is not OLED, but the colors are very vibrant and the blacks are quite dark. So you get very good sharpness and contrast with the colors and gameplay. The other great thing is that this goes up to 500 nits. Now there is one issue that I have with the display, and that is that it's a crazy fingerprint magnet. So you have to pretty much ensure at the end of the day when you're done playing the game, and especially if you're using the touchscreen, you will have to wipe it down. The glossy display does not help that. So if that is something that irks you and that makes you uncomfortable, because I know there's a small percentage of you that applies to, that will be an issue that you will run into. So just be mindful of that. So have a cleaning cloth on you at all times and make sure you're wiping this thing down constantly. Okay, now we're going to jump into the interface and gameplay of the Asus ROG Ally, but I have to mention this important point, and it is the most important part of this entire video. Make sure when you purchase this device that you update the firmware. A lot of people, when they reviewed these units about a couple days after they were released, were releasing numbers and figures that showed that the performance was less than the Steam Deck and not any better. The reason for that is that the stock firmware that this comes with needs to be updated once you get your hands on it. So Asus has actually released a couple of firmware and BIOS updates since its release. So the first thing you need to do is make sure you open up the Armory crate, go to settings, and update your firmware. I promise you the performance increase will be pretty substantial. When I initially unboxed this and played the first game, I was actually quite disappointed on the way that the game was playing, and it was a little bit laggy. The moment I upgraded the firmware, I have had no issues and the games run flawlessly. So please make sure if you end up buying this Ally, make sure to update the firmware. And if you're watching reviews, you have to ensure and ask the reviewer if they have updated the firmware, if they're showing that the FPS and frame rate isn't as high. So this is very, very, very important. Make sure you keep it up to date. Okay, so the coolest thing about the Asus ROG Ally is the interface, and it's all Windows 11. Yes, it is pretty much a Windows 11 device in a handheld setting. So that comes with a bunch of pros and cons. Now, the pros are if you're used to running a Windows 11 machine, then this is essentially a computer and you'll know how to navigate it, no problem. This also allows you to do a lot of stuff that you can do on a regular computer on this handheld. You also can run emulators. So if you want to install emulators and play on the ROG Ally, you can do that as well. Now, there are some negatives to this. If you're not used to Windows, then you will have some difficulty navigating and getting around this because this interface is not as straightforward to use as the OS on the Steam Deck. Other issues also include that just like any other Windows 11 machine, this machine is also susceptible to malware or viruses. So if you click on a link and if you're doing some funny business on your ROG Ally, you will pay the price. So make sure that you treat this like a computer. But other than that, for me, the interface is amazing. I like to have the flexibility and option of modifying as many settings as possible, and the unrestrictiveness of Windows 11 allows you to do that. Now, if this is something that might be worrisome to you and you feel like that it might be a little too much and you might feel uncomfortable navigating, Asus does come with its native Armory Crate app, and you can actually configure the Asus ROG Ally to launch this app when you turn your device on. This app is pretty much a standalone app. It pretty much is like a Steam launcher where you will have all your games and all your applications on one screen, and you can just launch them from there. So there is lots of flexibility both ways, but I just want to reiterate, this is essentially a Windows 11 machine on a handheld setting. So being a Windows 11 machine, that means any PC game that you can play on a standalone desktop, you can play on here. And that means all the launchers like EA, Steam, Ubisoft, Game Pass, all of them will work and are compatible with the ROG Ally. So the only restrictiveness that you'll get with this handheld device is the performance and the hardware specs, whether or not the hardware can run the game that you'd like to run to the frame rates you would want to play them at. So essentially, installing and playing the games are not an issue. It's the performance that will vary based on the specifications on the ROG Ally. And speaking of the specifications, this comes with a Z1 Extreme AMD APU. So this is essentially a CPU and GPU combined, and it comes with 16 gigabytes of RAM. You need 16 gigabytes because, like I said, Windows 11, you need to run the OS as well as the games. But I think the 16 gigabytes RAM is very clutch and is quite enough to keep all the games running. Now, the cool thing about the APU is that it has a 5.1 gigahertz boost clock. So when you needed to go into overclocking, not overclocking, when you need the boost and the gigahertz to run single threaded applications, it allows you to do that. And the coolest thing is this allows up to 30 watts of TDP. So when you do have this plugged in, you can jack up the performance as much as you want, up to 30 watts. So you can really get the performance and push this thing to the max, where the Steam Deck, I believe you're limited to between 12 and 15. So that is a giant bonus for this device. Now, there is one downside to the Windows 11 being installed on the Asus ROG Ally. It comes with a lot of bloatware. So when I initially unboxed this, and you'll see this in my unboxing video, it came with Microsoft Office and Microsoft Teams installed. Why you would need that on a handheld gaming device is beyond me. But I think it's because Asus did not use a specific version of Windows. They just installed Windows Standard, and it comes with all this bloatware. So there's good news to that. You can actually go to add or remove in Windows and remove all the bloatware and all the applications that you need. I recommend that you do that the very first time you launch this, so you can save as much space and resources on this device, so you're not loading up all those apps that you don't need on your computer. Okay, now on to the gameplay performance, and I did the benchmarking on a bunch of recent AAA titles as well as some classics. So we have Hitman 3, FIFA 23, F1 22, and some classics like Metal Gear Solid, as well as a physics-based game called Bean.ng, which is a very demanding game for the Ally. So I'm going to show you some gameplay performance, and I will let you watch how the games look, and I'll show you on screen what the frame rates were based on the different settings I had in the games. Now, just one quick note, everything was done based on 15 watts of TDP. So you can infer from that that if you increase the TDP, your performance will increase, but that also means that your battery life will go down. So here are the results.
Okay, just want to remind you to keep an eye on your tyre temperatures, which you can do on the temperature panel of the MFD. You monitor carcass temperature and surface temperature, and you'll get the best performance when they're both inside a normal operating window.
Under pressure now, that was a reckless challenge. He didn't need to make it at all.
Playing advantage here, United keep it. Fernandes. It has to be. He's blocked it. Manuel Akanji. Grealish. They've lost it. Gundogan. Well, the fans really want him to shoot. Oh, Oh, a smart stop.
That's interesting, actually. I might look into it. I just heard it.
How much time remaining? Don't worry, folks. Anything can still happen.
Hi, isn't this fun? I hope you have found it fascinating. Please feel free to take a look around or do whatever you like. And thank you.
The fact is that Ronstadt is very likely with
Careful down there, boss.
Boss, we have an emergency. Mother Base is under attack. The enemy is overrun one of our platforms, and they're holding some of our staff hostage. If we don't do something, they'll try to take off with our men. That would mean losing some of our finest manpower.
Careful down there, boss.
But I don't think we should stick around to see if he comes back. Closest town from here is Riverwood. My uncle's the blacksmith there. I'm sure he'd help you out. It's probably best if we split up. Good luck. I wouldn't have made it without your help today. Listen, you should go to Solitude and join up with the Imperial Legion. We could really use someone like you. If the rebels have themselves a dragon, General Tullius is the only one who can stop them.
Now, as you saw, some of the newer titles like Hitman 3 and FIFA 23 struggled at 1920p by 1080p, which is a little bit worrisome. However, when you drop the resolution down to 720p, it performed almost amazing. Like, you're looking at over 50 FPS standard with medium to high settings. And one of the great things about a 720p resolution is that because it's a 7-inch display, the drop from 1080p to 720p isn't as drastic as it would have been on, for example, a 24-inch monitor, where your pixel density is a lot higher on a handheld gaming device with a smaller display as it is on a larger display with the same resolution. So I actually had no issues with dropping some of the resolution, and for the most part, every single game ran over 50 FPS at 720p with medium to high settings. So genuinely, I was blown away with the performance, and it's actually kind of scary how good handheld gaming devices are, because just 5 years ago, trying to run a lot of these games on a PC, let alone the PS4, this is previous to the PS5, would have been difficult over 30 FPS. So from an engineering perspective, this is a pretty major feat. Now on to the big question, how is the battery life? And this is where I'm very disappointed, but not surprised. Remember, this is practically a PC with PC components in your hand. I've said that multiple times in this video, so don't be surprised with the results with the battery. So at 15 watts of TDP, I could not get more than 90 minutes of gameplay without having to charge. That means going from 100% to almost 0%. So if you're planning on purchasing this device, if you travel a lot and your travel times are over an hour, I would say that you might want to consider something else, because you will be charging this device. Now, if you are someone who games pretty much in your house and exclusive to your house, 90 minutes is not bad, because you'll always have your charger around with you. And the other cool thing about the battery on the Ally is that if you plug it in and play, it will actually bypass charging, so it doesn't affect your battery health. However, for those of you who are buying this to travel, you will have to ensure that you have your charger on you at all times, because the battery will drain pretty quickly. Now, speaking of the charger, it comes with a 65 watt fast charger, so that means you can actually go from 0 to 100% charge on your Ally in just under an hour. You can go up to 80% in around 30 to 35 minutes. So it does charge relatively quickly, and it gives it the power and the juice that it needs. So if you are using the charger, I recommend you always use the 65 watt fast charger, because I've tried using 20 watt, 30 watt, and 40 watt chargers, and sometimes when you're doing a firmware update, you actually get an error. It actually requires a full 65 watts. So make sure that you're using the standard charger that comes in the box with the Ally. Now, I do want to mention one other cool thing about this device. Now, I mentioned many times that this is running Windows 11. The very, very cool thing about this device is this: you can actually use this as a standalone desktop computer. That means if you connect a monitor via the USB-C cable, you essentially get a full Windows 11 machine. So all those bloatware apps that I was talking about, those actually might come in handy if you do want to do some productivity with Microsoft Office or pretty much any other application that you would install on Windows. Other great thing is that it is Bluetooth, so if you're going to connect a keyboard and a mouse to it, it can be done wirelessly through Bluetooth. So that is a major plus if you are intending on using this device like that, but more likely than not, anyone that's purchasing a handheld gaming device is going to be using it as gaming, but this is a plus and something that the Steam Deck does not offer. Now, of course, we can't go through a gaming review without mentioning the speakers, and the speakers on the Asus ROG Ally are actually quite great. There's no tinniness to it, and there's no reverb, and the bass actually packs quite a bit of a punch, and the volume is actually pretty loud. So if there are instances where you find yourself that you don't have your headphones around and you need to game with just the standalone speakers, the speakers actually sound great. Now, the sound that you listen to in the video will be limited to the microphone that I'm using, so it is not definitive what you actually hear. And I would with certainty say that in real life performance, that the sound sounds much, much better than what you're going to hear on video reviews. So if that is something that you like to do, you like to game without headphones, the Asus ROG Ally, the speakers are absolutely amazing. And now on to the final question: should you buy the Asus ROG Ally? So I do want to mention a negative, and this is a pretty major negative associated with this device: the price. This thing cost me over $1,000 Canadian with tax included. I'll put the USD equivalent on the screen. Now that is probably one of the most expensive gaming devices period that you will purchase or can purchase in the market. Now, for that price, you can have a lot of other handheld devices at a lot cheaper price point. So the Steam Deck, even at its highest model, is cheaper than the Asus ROG Ally. And if you're looking at other alternatives like Nintendo Switch or the Nintendo Switch Lite, you're paying a third of the price that you would pay for this. Now, of course, they don't have all the features that come with the ROG Ally, But if you're only focused on handheld gaming, then there are other cheaper options. And believe it or not, and I'm going to say it, price is a pretty big barrier to any product that you purchase. So unless you're a consumer that has disposable income and you're looking at only performance and you don't care about anything else, then of course the Asus ROG Ally is the best handheld device definitively that I think you can purchase. But for the average consumer and with the average person's disposable income, I just think at this price point, this handheld device is not worth it. Now, if this was a couple $100s cheaper, let's say if it was $800 or $700 after tax, then I would say, yes, this is a very competitive handheld device that can, really compete with the market share of the Steam Deck and some of the LG devices. But personally for me, I think this is a little too expensive, and I unfortunately will be returning this device because I don't think it's worth the price that I'm paying for it. Now, obviously, your experience with money and your preferences are going to be different, so take everything I say with a grain of salt and really reevaluate of what you want from a device and what you're willing to pay for it. But other than that, that is my 2 cents on the Asus ROG Ally. If you like this video, hit the subscribe button. I'm going to be doing a few more reviews. I will have the Steam Deck review coming up sometime this year. I will get my hands on it again and play for it, and I'm probably going to end up buying that and keeping that as my primary handheld gaming device. But until next time, I'll see you guys later. Peace.
Thank you.